I want to talk briefly about Shakespeare's second most famous sonnet, 130, My Mistress' Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun. Let me get a few things out of the way here. Some people want to read these poems extremely biographically. They will attempt to identify the character's disgust. Some people will tell you straight, some scholars will tell you in print that like the mistress with the dark eyes and the hair like black wires, who she is, she's a specific person. Um, how do they find this out? They use a scholar technique I don't approve of called making stuff up. Don't do it. I will mark you down for it. Should that be published ever? No. They'll actually name specific people who might be the beloved here, um, or the love object, without being able to prove that Shakespeare ever met that person. Let me suggest two other readings. I think these poems may be autobiography. We don't know because we can't check. We don't have his drafts and we don't have his love letters. We have his real estate records. We have his birth, his death. We have a lot of references to him as a poet and playwright and actor because he was a celebrity. So he's actually super, no matter what people tell you, he is super easy to track. There's a whole lot of evidence about him. There's just not evidence about what we really want to know over the last 200 years, what's going on in his inner life. We don't know that. Um, he didn't leave us that. There's no diary, there's no rough drafts, there's no love letters. It's gone. Let me throw you through two different ways to read this. One is, one thing we know about him, he did work as an actor. You can imagine each of the sonnets as a little dramatic monologue, something for a character to speak in an entertaining way, something that gets to some emotional thing and maybe moves the audience. If you think of these as tiny little dramatic monologues, hey, sometimes classically trained actors, Shakespearean actors, are told to prepare a sonnet or two as audition pieces. They work well as monologues, as soliloquies. I heard that Shakespeare wrote some soliloquies in a play one time, or over and over again in a lot of plays. The other thing he is doing here, and this is actually a standard reading, not just mine, or one of the standard readings, is Shakespeare is simply turning around and having a very witty reversal of the standard sonnet moves, which is about idealizing the female beloved, making her blonde, making her blue-eyed, skin like whatever, cream, lips like red, coral, roses, what have you, right? Which is part of a platonic love idea, part of what's in Renaissance Neoplatonism, which borrows the Greek philosopher Plato's and heterosexualizes the Greek philosopher Plato's idea of platonic love, where you get inspired by beauty, and this moves you to love a better version, the version your lover, you see someone beautiful and you're hot for them. And then you start being in love with like who that person ought to be. And then you're in love with beauty itself. And eventually you climb Plato's ladder to like more and more broad, vague generalities. And you're in love with beauty and goodness and truth itself. I would point out that in this, the actual person you're allegedly in love with is a rung, a rung on a ladder designed to get you somewhere else. And actually, the second rung. Not great, right? Also, since it's the 21st century, and if you haven't read Freud, you've read someone who's read someone who's read Freud, we have learned how idealizing people idealization can actually be fairly hostile. Like, oh, this you build someone up to be more perfect than anyone could ever be, and then you get hostile when you're disappointed. Let me get down to cases. Let me read this poem. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are done. If hairs be wires, black wires grow in her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks, and in some perfumes there is more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love is rare, as any she belied with false compare. Famous. Okay, we're going to reverse. The normal move is the beloved is more beautiful than anything, and there's this very pale, Nordic kind of white-centric beauty standards. She's very pale, she's blonde, etc. This is even in the Italian love poems. Like, where are you finding all these blondes in Florence? I don't know. I've been given to understand that Italians with blonde hair are relatively uncommon. It's this remark is made to me basically all the time. So Shakespeare turns it around. And it's a crazy put there. I'm like, yeah, she doesn't have, like, it's not about her breasts. Her lips aren't like coral. Of course they're not. Neither are yours. This poem stands in relationship to a vast body of other things. It's taking the cliche and burning it down, turning it around. Now, her eyes are not like the sun. Her lips are not like coral. She does not have roses under cream in her skin. She doesn't sound like music when she talks. That would be weird. In the end, this is a classic turn on the 13th line, and yet, sign of the turn, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. That last line can be read grammatically in two ways. As any she can be a verb, as any woman belied by false compare. Also, as rare as any that my love is rare as any she belied. Like my love, she does not belie my love. One thing I would like to say here about this poem is it makes space for non-platonic love, terrestrial love that is not about idealizing the beloved, but actually like being like, yeah, that she doesn't fit the thing, but actually this one's there are many women in the world, and some are prettier than this one, but this one's mine. Shakespeare is not interested in these poems in moving, especially in the poems with the woman, in moving to a more exalted place with her. He's interested in the actual thing that platonic love leaves out, which is staying down here on earth, being with the actual person, not the idealized person that they ought to be.